the Moscow metro has an average of 7 million daily riders.
What? Okay, this was a suggestion. I believe this is the correct video. I hope this is the correct video. But Moscow Metro.
To today's video brought to you by Keeps. More on them a little bit later. The quality and extent of a nation's public transportation is often used as a key indicator of the prosperity of that nation, United States aside. The ability to quickly and efficiently move the public en masse has time and time again been one of the best ways to stimulate an economy. And when
I'm gonna talk a bit about the United States aside bit later in this video, but the video just began. But no, America is not as prosperous as you think it is. But the video just began. So
done well, these public works projects can become not only a promoter of internal growth, but an attraction in and of themselves. The New York subway, the London Underground, and the Japanese train system are all prime examples of this. They are, at base, methods of transportation. But because they are exceptional in a variety of ways, they have come to be known far beyond the limits of the cities that they serve. However, none is more exceptional than the Moscow Underground system. A jewel of the socialist state that once occupied the Russian Federation, the Moscow Underground even today stands heads and shoulders above most other public transportation networks in most measurable fields. So today we're going to learn about the construction, the operation, and the cultural significance of the Moscow Underground. The Moscow Underground began life, as many other public projects do, as a gleam in the eye of a politician. After observing the success of the London Underground, plans to build a similar style of public transport in the Russian capital were being thrown about as early as 1917. Shortly after this idea was conceived of, though, the Russian leadership found themselves embroiled in a small matter called the October Revolution, and so huge public projects like this found themselves a little bit on the back burner. The next time the idea would be raised again would be when the Communist Party had comfortably claimed the reins of power, and more importantly, when one man had taken those reins into his own hands. In 1931, the idea of a was pitched to the Communist Central Committee. Strictly speaking, this was to be their decision, but as I'm sure you've already guessed, the decision was ultimately Stalin's. When this came to him, he saw it as an opportunity to prove just what the workers of the nation could achieve when they were in control. As such, Stalin approved of it at once, and construction began that same year. But it wasn't until the following year that there was even a finalized plan for the layout of the first line. Looking at it now, it's clear to see that this was always going to be a grand project. Taking place in the midst of Stalin's many 5-year plans, in the capital city of a nation supposedly populated by only workers, a huge construction project for the workers, by the workers, and with the world watching, it should be proof that communism was simply a superior method of governance, or at least that's how Stalin saw it.
Well, and that's the thing with communism, right? You know, I talked a lot about this, like, in my Rise of China reaction, where a lot of people in the West, they only think of communism as, oh, only bad, right? However, communism has actually done a lot of achievements that is noteworthy. Now, I'm not a communist. Please don't come in my comments saying that, oh my goodness, you're a communist. Actually, no, I'm not a communist. I don't even like the Soviet Union. In fact, actually, now I'm saying this because I have a bunch of newcomers who are new to my channel. This is why you only see me with Russian imperial flags, because I am actually a monarchist. To all the newcomers who don't understand that, I believe the Soviet Union was more of a detriment to Russia, but this video isn't really like on the history of the Soviet Union and how it impacted Russia. I'll talk more about that in another video. Or if you want to hear me talk more about that, after you're done watching this video, you can go and watch my Why is Russia So Poor reaction, where I talked a lot about that there. that I've done. Like, I did that video like 2 years ago, I believe. It's on my playlist on my YouTube channel, my Russia reaction playlist. You could go check it out there after you're done watching this video. Okay, but back to the whole communism gambit. I don't blame someone for being a communist, though. That's the thing. I don't blame someone for being a communist, because capitalism is overrated. Capitalism is honestly overrated. Okay, people, I don't know why, but people in the West, especially America, they're so brainwashed and indoctrinated to believe that capitalism is the only thing. Capitalism is the only thing that can work. Nothing else. Oh, socialism bad. Like, it's so bad, guys. Like, if you're an American living in America, I live in America, right? That any word, like anything like related to socialism in the slightest bit, instantly viewed as bad. Like, look at Bernie Sanders, right? When he was running for president. Do you know the reason why he lost? And he was good. In my personal opinion, he was good. The reason why he lost was because he had a lot of socialist tendencies and he leaned into a lot of socialist policy. So because of that, a lot of his opponents literally just said, oh my gosh, guys, socialist, he's a socialist. Oh, communist, bad. That is literally why he lost. That's literally why he lost. Well, probably arguably the main reason why he lost. Because the Americans just heard, oh, he likes socialist things. Oh, no. Oh, I'm taught that socialism is bad. I'm not voting for him. Oh, communist up. Bro, the thing with socialism / communism is really, like, on a piece of paper, the whole idea is just better workers' rights on a piece of paper. I said on a piece of paper because in reality, when that actually gets implemented, you get mixed results. And I say mixed results because, you know, a person from the West would say, in reality, socialism fails. However, in an objective standpoint, it's mixed. And it really depends on the country that we're talking about here. Like, it really depends. Like, it's not as black and white as a lot of people want to, like, make it out to be. I could talk so much more about this here, like socialism and capitalism, but I'm not going to talk too much here. This is about the Moscow Metro. But, again, yeah, I mean, communism, many achievements like this whole metro system that we're about to talk about here.
Politician and general administrator Lazar Kaganovich was appointed as the head of the project. As the commissioner of rail and heavy industry, Lazar was the obvious choice for the project. As for his actual qualifications, well, he used to work at a shoe factory before becoming a prominent member of the Communist Party, which could either be an endorsement or an indictment of communism. We're not really sure. Construction on the first line pushed on at a ferocious rate, and plans for the metro were expanded past the initial 11-kilometer line. In 1933, the committee approved the construction of additional 9 lines, bringing the total to 10 distinct lines and 80 kilometers of tunnels to be built below Moscow. As he was, Lazar was fully aware of his lack of any formal qualifications for such a project, but it was well known that the London Underground was the most developed and advanced metro network in the world at the time. Oh, how things change. On a visit to London, Lazar and his head designers were impressed by the construction quality of the stations and decided to bring on 2 of those who had headed up construction of many of London's underground stations. These were Charles Holden, who was an architect, and Frank Pick, who was an administrator. Together, these 2 Englishmen took a consultory role in the project and oversaw the construction and design of the first metro stations. The main bulk of this designing was to be done by the English engineering firm, the Metropolitan Vickers Electrical Company, who had supplied many of the structural engineers for London Underground. As for the work itself, this was to be done exclusively by the works of the Great Soviet Socialist Republic, which seems to have been a very good thing, as the first line, commissioned in 1931, was completed just over 3.5 years later in 1935. For reference, the new Elizabeth line in London used state-of-the-art construction methods, and it took 13 years to complete 42 kilometers of tunnels. The Soviets did their 11 kilometers of tunnels by hand, and they did it faster. Following the completion and subsequent opening of the first line, the entire project was considered a roaring success, with 285,000 Soviet citizens riding the metro on the opening day alone. Thousands of propaganda posters were put up all over the city, proclaiming it to be the greatest metro line in the world. And the strange thing was that they weren't even lying. The trains ran 7 kilometers an hour faster than those of New York. Average delays were lower than any other underground system at the time, and fares were, and have remained, cheaper than most other comparable networks.
You know what's funny about this guy? I didn't want to react to this guy's video because this guy is so he likes to push a lot of Western narratives. I mean, listen to his accent. He speaks with a posh British accent. What do you expect? But what I'm saying is, he says that they push a lot of propaganda posters. Oh my gosh, propaganda. Guys, when you're pushing propaganda, it doesn't have to be lies. Propaganda does not have to be lies, bro. So he's wrong there. I don't know why he was like, oh, it's shocking because the propaganda wasn't like. Propaganda doesn't have to be lies. Propaganda could just be cherry-picked information, but it's still the truth. For example, let's say you're in a conflict with somebody, right? And you're taking more losses, right, in that conflict, right? Like a war, hypothetical war, right? But let's say you get one victory. You could literally just report only on that victory and just completely ignore your losses. It's still true that you had that one victory. However, you're purposely ignoring all the other losses. But it's still technically true. Propaganda is truth, but you gotta be really careful with it. And this, I'm not saying this is specific to any country. I'm just saying in general, propaganda is truth, but it's stretched. Most of the time, it's stretched. So it's your responsibility to be able to decrypt / decipher and tell okay, this is the truth, but are they purposely ignoring things? Are they purposely leaving things out? You could go report on the truth. If it's the truth, it would still be classed as propaganda. But if it's completely true, there's no nuance to it. There's nothing else to it. It's okay, cool, it's true. But this guy, he likes to push so much narratives on Russia. Now, the USSR isn't Russia, but he likes to frame the USSR as Russia, even though it's not. But so it's kind of annoying to hear some of the things he said. Oh my gosh, they weren't lying, bro. They weren't lying. He makes it seem like if the USSR was lying about everything. He always paints things out oh my gosh, Russia lies about everything. Oh, which is not the case at all.
Such success spurred on the construction of the remaining 9 lines that would spread all across Moscow. The construction would proceed in 4 stages. Stage 1 would be the construction of the initial line beginning in 1931. Stage 2 would be carried out between 1935 and 1941, in which lines 2 and 3 were built. Stage 3 began and ended with World War II, with only line 4 being constructed, and the 4th stage began at the end of World War II in 1945 and would see an explosion of construction that would continue until 1954.
Yeah, from German POWs. German slave labor. No! I'm not saying Oh my gosh, it's so bad. No, the Germans literally like use Soviet slave labor too in Germany when they had captured all those Soviet POWs. But the way how he said it, like, oh yes, right after the war, they had an explosion of construction. Like, oh, just a magic explosion. No, it's because they had German POWs that were slaves doing that. That's why that so-called explosion randomly happened.
And in those 9 years, between 45 and 54, no fewer than 4 extra lines were added to the total, and each of the already existing lines received an extension. The final line to be constructed was the Ring Line, which, surprise, surprise, ran in a ring around the center of the city. The Soviet legend tells it, Stalin put his coffee cup down on the map of Moscow and then ordered the imprint become a metro line. Following the end of Stage 4, the rate at which the metro was expanding began to slow, but it was by no means done. Up until now, the architecture of the stations had focused on the grandeur of the project. However, past 1954, this was toned down and a far more economical approach was taken. This didn't mean that the station's quality would become shoddy, far from it. They were still world-class in terms of their architecture, they were just a little bit cheaper to produce. As of 2022, the metro has a total of 17 lines that create a web to near enough any location in the city, including the airport. The subtotal distance covered by these tunnels is 467 kilometers, comprising 287 separate stations, making it the 8th longest metro in the world. If you're curious, the other 7 that preceded it are all in China, with the longest being the Shanghai metro coming in at a whopping 803 kilometers of tunnels, and if you'd like to see a video on that, we can absolutely oblige you. Just let us know in the comments. I'd personally like to do that one. We're probably going to do that one anyway. One of the notable parts of the construction in modern times is the completion of Park Pomedi Station in 2003. This station is the deepest of the entire Moscow metro and is one of the deepest metro stations in the world at 83 meters.
Golly! Holy! Yo, people don't feel scared down there?
An international icon on account of its length and depth. No, it was something very different that brought the Moscow metro to international prominence. So have you ever wished for something to help you with your hair loss? Well, I certainly know I have. Hello.
Sponsor, guys.
Don't let hair loss hold you and take good order.
Sponsor.
Apparently you can go from 0 to
As we said before, this was to be an exhibition of the capabilities of a socialist republic, proof that luxury was not the sole property of the bourgeoisie. With such a grand mission statement, there must be a suitably grand entrance. Remember that London architect, Charles Holden, hired by Lazar Kaganovich all the way back in 1933? He had personally designed Piccadilly Circus Station in London, and when he saw his work, Lazar was so enthused by his design and use of high-quality materials that he gave Holden full reign on the early construction of the Moscow metro stations. The 13 stations that made up the first line were, for their time, considered to be the grandest metro stations in the world. For these 13 stations alone, the Soviet Union imported 21,000 tons of marble. Many of them had a theme, such as Mayakovskaya Station, which was designed with the theme of aviation, adhering to an Art Deco style. Upon the opening of the first line, the public were awed with the beauty of each individual station. No doubt, persisting its overwhelming success.
Oh my goodness, what the heck? USSR, you did all that, but you couldn't at least like give some freaking more aura to your homes? Those commie blocks
began to consume the entire world, and the German war machine pushed closer and closer to Moscow. Construction slowed. However, this was simply a pause before the real work started. If anyone thought that these kinds of lavish architectural masterpieces were a flash in the pan burst of excitement that would be lost to government spending cuts, they would be proven dead wrong. If anything, the complexity and grandeur of the new metro stations following the end of World War II would only increase as time went on.
Oh my god.
Suffice to say, even the most average-looking Moscow metro station stands head and shoulders above the majority of stations that you might find in London or New York. So it would be fair to say that for the many things that Russia does wrong, they're pretty good at making train stations. Well, to be honest, it's...
Again, like... This is what I mean. Like, this guy, he really loves to push this narrative of, Russia, Russia does everything wrong. It's so, But America good, guys. The West is good. The West can do no wrong. The West is supreme.
Not just the stations that are head and shoulders above their British and American counterparts. The Moscow Metro runs one of the most consistent rail services on the planet, with 99.9% of trains arriving on time. One of the more notable aspects of the Metro is the way in which the trains are scheduled, insofar as they are scheduled. Rather, the trains simply arrive every 90 seconds. And where in most stations you would find a board informing you which trains are due to arrive next, in Moscow you will find simply a timer counting down the number of seconds since the last train left. This kind of regularity.
What the heck? What?
Where the London Underground has an average daily ridership of 1.8 million, the Moscow Metro has an average of 7 million daily riders.
What? What? 7 million? Bro, the population of Moscow Oblast is like, what, 10 million people, right? It's like, I think Moscow Oblast is 10 or 13 million people in the entirety of the Moscow Oblast. That is like either, if it's 10 million people, 70% of the entire population of the Moscow Oblast. Or if it's 13 million people, that is like a little over half the population. Like 55 to 60% of the population of the whole freaking Moscow Oblast. That is crazy.
People in a single day, significant effort has been put into optimizing the day-to-day running of the trains. Each platform is attended by 2 or more attendants whose job it is to ensure that the trains are never held up by people boarding and that there is never any congestion with those entering and leaving the station. Each rail line is designed to intentionally minimize the chance of breakdown, the main way being each line operating independent of the other lines. This eliminates the need for inefficient and accident-prone switching stations. This did mean higher upfront costs of construction, as each line required a new separate tunnel system to be constructed, but the results have more than paid off that extra initial cost. The Moscow Metro is also the only metro in the world that carries out a full medical examination upon its drivers, which is done prior to the beginning of every shift and must be passed in order to begin a shift. The ethos with which the metro system and its stations were built was one of pride in being a Soviet. These days that sentiment is long gone, but the pride still remains.
It shows you that, and that's the same with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was such a complex country because it done so much. It has achieved so much noteworthiness, but at the same time, there's a lot of faults to the USSR. The USSR is like what America to me is, right? People like to worship America and say, oh my gosh, America is great. Like, America has that potential to like be a utopia. It really does, but it chooses not to. It chooses to essentially enslave vast majority of its people. Most people here in the US are struggling. Take it from someone who's living in America right now. America is so awful, in fact, that I don't even plan to stay in America. I plan to either go back to Barbados, most likely go back to Barbados. I already said in another video, it might be 50-50 that I might go move to Russia for a bit. It really depends. But America is really not it, guys. But America has done some noteworthy things. Like, America does have the best healthcare quality in the world. Like, that's no debate there. But then when you go a little deeper into it, you're like, oh, wait, it's only like the elites who have access to that healthcare quality, right? So like America has done a lot, it can do a lot, but you know, it's not what it could be. It's very nuanced. That's like the Soviet Union to me. But the thing with the USSR though is that a lot of what the USSR did, like every single time the USSR has done something like good or noteworthy, at least the people benefited from it. Usually, the people benefited from it. America, when it does something noteworthy, 9 times out of 10, it's only to benefit the elites. It's like, wow, this is so cool, man. This is so impressive, man. But then you realize, oh, wait, this is only benefiting the elites. Now, the USSR is a bit more complex than America, but I'm just saying there is some similarities. You can't really compare the USSR to America because there's like different contexts of why certain things came out the way that it did. But all I'm saying is that the USSR, like, because people in the West, they think that the USSR was like this bad, poor country, especially in America. They say, oh my gosh, the USSR was so poor. Everybody was struggling. Communism couldn't get anything done. But, you know, this proves otherwise, right? This proves otherwise. So that's quite interesting. Like, the USSR was more than capable of getting things done, but again, a lot of nuance to it.
The Moscow Metro, by most metrics, was a huge success. Aesthetically, it's a triumph. Functionally, it's one of, if not the most efficient services currently running today. Its construction was completed ahead of schedule, and construction quality is still, 80 years later, without reproach.
Imagine being able...
And of course, this couldn't be a Mega Projects video discussing the Soviet Union if we didn't mention the Cold War. As construction of the Moscow Underground kicked into high gear, so too did the Cold War. In the 1950s, during the fourth phase of construction, Stalin covertly ordered the construction of a top-secret secondary set of tunnels below Moscow and interweaving with the other tunnels. These would be for the sole use of public officials and also for accommodating military personnel in the event of a nuclear attack. Even today, much of this operation is top secret, and the existence of such tunnels has only loosely been accepted by the Russian government. Various urban exploration groups have claimed to have found one or more of these tunnels, though the government has neither confirmed nor denied any of these claims. What we do know from the documentation is that there are anywhere between 1 and 4 secret lines of tunnels running beneath Moscow. Even from its conception, the main metro system was designed with a strategic military function in mind. However, Metro 2 would be purely for military use. As such, the exact locations of the tunnels and the locations where you might enter the tunnels are shrouded in secrecy. With that said, it is known that every important government building in Moscow has access to at least one of these tunnels, the idea being that, should the need arise, important politicians can simply enter the tunnels and continue their work. This is evidenced by the so-called staircases to nowhere that can be found in certain Russian government buildings. It is also known that the tunnels stretch far enough to carry someone from the center of the city to the suburbs and even out of the city limits. The best-known tunnel, thought to be the first tunnel, begins near the Kremlin, travels underneath the Moskva River and past the Luzhniki Stadium, where it continues to locations unknown. This particular tunnel can be seen from one of the normal metro lines near the university. Officially, this junction is a dead end. However, certain urban explorers have followed the tunnel and found that it continues for some distance before ending in a set of heavy steel gates. There are also a variety of buildings dotted around Moscow that at first glance appear to be normal buildings. However, a closer look will tell you that the doors have no crack and the windows are painted on. This in itself is not a certain indicator of being an entrance to a tunnel. I mean, many cities have disguised government-owned buildings that serve an unaesthetic purpose. Los Angeles has oil derricks that pump crude oil disguised as regular residential buildings, and New York has large air vents for the various tunnels around Manhattan disguised as brownstone houses. However, some of the disguised houses in Moscow are situated above known locations of the secret Metro 2. The largest known bunker attached to this tunnel system is situated in the south of Moscow, beneath the complex of associated science buildings that were built in the 1960s. According to an ex-KGB agent that was involved in the construction, this bunker is capable of housing up to 15,000 people at a single time when operating at full capacity. Finally, and perhaps most interestingly of all, is Bunker 42, also known as the Tagansky Protected Command Point. This is our best evidence for the existence of Moscow's secret underground metro. What makes the site so interesting is that it gives us an insight into how the scourge of nuclear war was perceived on the other side of the Iron Curtain. Since the partial declassification of the metro system, this is the one site that has become broadly available to the public in the form of a museum, delineating how the citizens of Moscow would have survived in the event of nuclear war.
You know, like, yeah, a whole bunch of metro lines, 100% exists. That's, yeah, not even a question. Let's be real here, folks. Like, come on now. Come on now. Come on now. We all that this stuff exists, bruh. Freaking. But I wonder how much though. How much exists? What do you guys think? That's what's going through my mind, is how much of these lines exist. That's intriguing. I've heard a bit about this stuff. These secret metro lines in Moscow. It's such a smart idea, honestly. You know what's crazy to me about this? America does not have any of this. Well, we don't know. But America's metro lines is not really that sophisticated that we wouldn't really know. Interesting.
What we see when we take a peek behind the propaganda is not a nation hell-bent on destruction of the world, but a nation full of very normal, rational people, scared of a nuclear-capable enemy to the West. Much the same as the normal, rational people in America who were scared of their nuclear-capable enemy to the East.
Oh my gosh. This is the first time I've heard, like, this guy actually be normal and be rational about the USSR and not say any like stupid narratives. Wow, that's commentary. Insane.
It turns out the nuclear bunker is exactly the same, regardless of which side you're on. So there you have it. The Moscow Metro, an undeniably beautiful product of an ultimately authoritarian regime, which may leave a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth when you consider the fact that many of the artisans who designed and created the art pieces that line the walls inside the station also saw the inside of Stalin's Siberian gulags. And no matter how grand the project, you can't get away from the brutality and suspicion that underlines the whole project. Lazar Kaganovich, the head of the early project, had a nickname, Iron Lazar. He was known across the Soviet leadership for his ability to boost productivity and discipline on any project that he was in charge of, so I suppose it's not all that surprising that the project got finished so quickly under his administration. Then there are the countless English structural engineers that were held and interrogated by the KGB following the conclusion of their work. The KGB's concern was that they knew too much about the tunnel systems below Moscow and that this could be a national threat. So upon the conclusion of their work, they imprisoned the engineers and gave each one a show trial, finding them all guilty of espionage and deporting them out of the country. Some behaviors were a trademark of the USSR at this point in time and cannot be ignored when considering the wider picture of even a successful project like the Moscow Metro. But then again, to the people of Moscow, such things are in the past. Today they take as much pride in their metro as they did when it first opened. Employees take pride in working for the public metro and generally receive respect for their work. Every member of the public considers it their responsibility to look after the beautiful stations, and there are many instances of vandals being subjected to extrajudicial retribution by members of the public before the police could even get to them. So, as with all things, context matters, and exactly how much of this context you consider when you evaluate this project will probably dictate how you feel about it. But whichever way you choose to look at it, at the end of the day, you can't deny that these tunnels are a beautiful addition to the city of Moscow. And the currently fraught relationship that Russia has with the Western world notwithstanding, I'm sure it would be a lovely place to see one day.
Well, I'm gonna see it one day, and that one day is gonna be in the near future. I'm not gonna say when I'm gonna see it in the near future, but it will be in the future when I visit Russia and I do my Russia vlog. This metro is gonna be very convenient for when I go to Moscow. Actually, that's gonna be absolutely fire. That's gonna be sick, bro. If you got any more videos on Russia, definitely give it to me. If you're a Russian, you should subscribe because a lot of people, you know, they like to unsubscribe from me when they see slash hear is that I'm a Russian fanboy. I'm a big Russian supporter, right? I lost a lot of subscribers because of that. So, you know, if you're Russian, you know, you want to help a brother out, you know, you could subscribe for me. Like I said, every video that I have on Russia that is suggestions to me, I will make sure that I do that reaction. I made an announcement specifically in Russian, directed at my Russian viewers so that they understood. And trust me, it will be done because I have a bias for anything Russian. So believe me, this was one of those suggestions. So it'll just take time because I'm just one guy. I post one video per day. I literally have hundreds of suggestions, man. But, you know, thank y'all for all the love and support, especially on that video, Russian language overview video. You know, thank y'all for all the love on that. Believe me, you know, I really appreciate it, especially when I'm used to people hating on me in my comments because I'm a Russian fanboy. And openly supporting Russia, people calling me crazy, all that stuff. I really appreciate that. So believe me, like I do. Check out my other like Russia reactions. Like I said, you could go check out like why Russia is poor reaction that I did there. It's in my Russian playlist. All my videos that I've done on Russia, it's in one playlist. So you could go click on that playlist. You'll see all the videos that I've done on Russia that I've reacted to on / about Russia. And the playlist, I specifically put this playlist at like you can't miss it. You just go on my channel page, scroll down. Just scroll down a bit. You'll see it's right. I specifically put this playlist like at like the top, like one of the toppest, like top of the top, at the most top, because I wanted like all the future Russian audiences to see this, because like I said, I have a bias for anything Russian. So, but anyways, thank you for watching and goodbye.